No country can really grow on the basis of one form of transport.
That train, oh God, that train would be the answer.
The trucks are really ruining the roads. Most of the roads that are ruined are because of the heavy trucks.
The railway is very important to any development that must relate to a country.
My name is David Mullings, and a few years ago I decided that I needed to record the memories of the Jamaican Railroad that my paternal grandmother, Eunice Mullings, had shared with us many times. I grew up in Jamaica, and I actually used to take the train. I was born in 1981, and I take the train to the country, to Montego Bay, to spend time with my grandmother. And at the time that I decided to record this, she was somewhere around 95 years old. And most importantly, they had just brought back the train to Jamaica, and a number of my friends were surprised that I used to take the train. So I decided that I needed to head back to Montego Bay, visit some of the places I used to visit, and we managed to get some interviews with family members and also the Minister of Transport and Works at the time, Mike Henry.
It's tied to the history that one must put in perspective the impact that the railway had on the world, and by extension how it arrived in Jamaica. In that context, it came along and was built in 7 different franchises which related to the banana industry. I think many people forget that the banana was called green gold. That green gold context made it known how important the banana industry, that's available in a book too, I think it's written by Leslie Goff, when banana was king. And therefore one would find that because of the growing and the development of Jamaica in an absentee landlord kind of structure, and where the ports were important, and the timing of the banana from being cut to being put on a ship to arriving in Europe, where it would ride on its way there, spoke to the time, and it spoke to timing and the interconnectivity of timing. Part of my own approach lies in the fact that I think we have not overcome the fact that we need to rehabilitate ourselves from an exploitative aspect of developed countries, and therefore the whole plantocracy, slavery, impacts itself on my own thinking. In that context, however, that the railway is very important to any development that must relate to a country.
So we're here in Anchovy. This is a train station that I used to get picked up at. Robert and I would come here, grandma would pick us up, and we'd spend most of our summers in Anchovy here, you know, hanging out right near Montego Bay and Montpelier. As you can see, the train tracks are still here, but they've turned the place into a car place. It's a car shop. You know, we have cars sitting down on the train tracks. Okay, we saw a cow sitting on the train tracks. It's very bushed up. This is not how I remember it, but these are the steps that I used to climb up as a kid. These are the steps Robert used to climb up, and grandma would come and pick us up. The house is less than 10 minutes away. We could even walk there if we wanted, but this is where we spend a lot of our life, and it is weird to come back here and see the place looking like this. So how was it like to have a train right there by the house?
Oh Lord, it make too much noise, man. But it was alright. Passenger train, freight train, banana train, all kind of train.
Alright, so we're here at Grandma's house in Anchovy, St. James, in Jamaica. This is where we'd come when we go on the train. This is where we'll be coming to. And if you look down here, you can't really see it right now, it's bushed up, but this is exactly where the train used to run. The train tracks are at the bottom of this property. And we used to be woken up by the train at 6 in the morning. So we could come down and we could watch the train passing, going to and from. And that's what we grew up seeing. We grew up coming on the train and then being able to look down there and see the train running right here in Jamaica.
What are your memories of the train in Jamaica?
The train running from Montego Bay to Kingston, stopping at nearly all the railway stations, dropping off passengers and goods, because they used to carry goods on the train. When I go to Kingston to buy goods for the shop, because I had a shop, as you know, I would buy my goods and ask the agents to ship it out on the train from Montego Bay. And then I go to the railway and pick it up.
Well, I can clearly remember having to go to the railway station to collect goods from the warehouse at the railway station and then transport them either to the home or to the shop to have them repackaged and so on to be displayed in the shop. And it certainly was very, very beneficial to the business, because then you're purchasing goods in Kingston, you wouldn't have to arrange for individual transport to take them on to Montego Bay. It also was a safe means of transport, and most times the goods would come in fairly good condition.
Well, the train helped because people who are doing business didn't have too much of a problem moving goods from one city to another or receiving goods from one place. You could always ship your things and get it arriving on time, you know, when it was coming. So I think economically it worked.
When the trains ran, there was no need for trucks to be traveling from Kingston and all over the place. They would, freight cars would come and be parked at the station, and the station master would deliver the goods to various trucks, and they would go whether Hanover, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth, depending.
What kind of goods you used to buy?
All kind of things. Wedding gifts, school gifts, music gifts, all kind of things. It was a gift shop.
Okay. Where in Montego Bay was the gift shop?
5 St. James Street.
And you remember any other people that used to come there and buy from you or sell stuff to you?
Oh, merciful God. The people that used to send stuff to me. You mean when I go to Kingston and buy this stuff and them send it down?
Right.
Nearly all the business places in Kingston only got that. Like, for instance, R.E. Taylor, Elite. And Time Store and the most important metal in the world. Not those what me used to. Like Time Store, R.E. Taylor, Elite. There's another one there. I don't remember. that.
It showed that it existed for an industrial need, so bauxite was carried. We gave licenses to bauxite companies to build lines where we didn't have lines. But we abandoned it from carrying our own cargo, carrying our passengers, which really is an integrated way that you should have been looking at it. So that I decided that the railway has 5 elements of value: transference of data, cargo, passengers, heritage tourism, and of course the bauxite which is carried. With the resuscitation too of the sugar industry now, I'm being asked, can we again go back? Sugarcane carts on the roads are damaging the roads, knocking down light poles. Therefore it was a short-sighted vision of transport. So when you look at the railway, and I've not been interested in this merely as minister, indeed I had someone who painted on all of the stations before they were destroyed, and their names alone suggested issues that you have to deal with. And in my own time, I've traveled the railway too, and I love traveling by the rail anywhere in the world. And as you can see, countries expand the rail. It's more a matter of whether it's diesel, whether it's electric, what have you, overall.
We had a milk station in Montreal where they buy the milk from the dairy cows, from the dairy farmers. And uncle Arthur used to manage that. So, then we buy the people buy the milk and carry down there. And he have to look after that.
In 1942, Nestle established a cooling station in Montpelier where they would collect milk from the farmers in the area. But there was no condensery near Montpelier, so they would ship the milk to Bogwalk in St. Catherine where there was a condensery. This milk was made into condensed milk, which all of us know and consume.
So if it didn't have a train, what do you think would have happened to that milk or the milk farmers, the dairy farmers?
Well, maybe some truck could have been arranged, but it would not be as easy because they would have to send the milk in churns, whereas on the train they could put it in a tanker and the train would just haul it along.
So you think that if the train comes back, that something like that can be revived?
Yes, if there's production in the area, that would be the ideal thing to revert to shipping by train.
So what role did you play with the milk? How was...
I was in charge of the collection of the milk into the cooling station. Trucks would go into the various districts, collect the milk by churns, then we process it at the cooling station. Processing only in as far as quality is concerned, and to cool it for the quality, holding quality. Then it will be shipped to Bogwalk where the process will be continued, adding the various ingredients to make a condensate.
Okay. So what was it like for you growing up with the trade in Jamaica?
You mean the milk trade?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I remember as a boy, I was staying with my brother in Friendship in Westmoreland, and the milk truck sometimes was the only means of transport. So we would hop onto the milk truck, and along with the milk cans, go where we were going, you know. They would charge a fee, but that was a means of transport.
An integrated transport system is a necessity for any modern society.
How was the train system in Jamaica when you were growing up?
Well, essentially, there were three aspects of the train system. There was a passenger transport system, there was a commercial transport system, and there was the tourist transport system. So you had the main train which ran from Montego Bay to Kingston, Kingston to Montego Bay. One-way journey, basically in the morning and in the evening, carrying passengers. It was like an express. Just passengers only. And then you had the freight train which carried passenger and freight. So it was a commercial activity. The passenger train would take roughly 3.5 hours. The freight train would take up to 6-7 hours. And then you had the small, what we call the Kalamazoos, which would run shorter distances, basically a passenger rail service traveling between a couple points, carrying school children to and from school, persons going to work. So it would go one way in the morning and come back in the evening. So yeah, it was very helpful in those days.
And between 13 and 18, I used to ride the Kalamazoo regularly to visit my friend, whose parent was very nice to me at the time. I also was a teenager in my 13 to 18 years old, going to Irwin in St. James to the person who I called my second mother. It was very pleasant because at the time we didn't have telephones to keep in touch, but my parent was my mother, who would put me on the train, was very happy, and she was confident that I would arrive safely. Because you won't hear anything until I send a telegram or write back to say I arrived. At the same time, I was comfortable with the ride too. I didn't have any fear. I had my little suitcase and I just went along happily as if no care in the world.
The passenger train ran from Montego Bay to Kingston each day. One in the morning going to Kingston, one in the evening coming to Montego Bay. And there are various stations along the line, and the stations close to us were Cambridge, Montpelier, and Anchovy. Then to go on to Montego Bay.
Okay. So, which station was the most popular station in the area?
I think Montpelier was a very focal point because from Montpelier, people who came on the train could get their way to Hanover, St. Elizabeth, Westmoreland. And in fact, the train also ran a mail service. Each morning, a mail van would come from Savlamar and meet the train at Montpelier, give it the mails, and in the evening, it would meet the train again at Montpelier, collect the mails from Kingston, and go on to Savlamar.
And we used to take our letters at Anchovy post office. And because of what happened to the train crash in Balaclava, we had to change. But not that only why we had to change. When Wes was to go to Kingston to do get his exam to go into, what do you call his name, Tony?
Michael.
Michael. We couldn't get the car started for nothing at all. We pushed till we nearly dead that morning to catch a train. And at last, when we finally got it out of the yard, because the yard has a grade on top of the hill. And when we finally got it out of the yard, I said, boy, we're late for the train now. Turn down the hill, because it can't run neutral down the hill. And we turned down the hill. That's why I changed my post office to Montpelier.
So he got to the exam?
No, in a most one. When we put him on the train blow for leave him on the station. But he go buy the ticket on the train.
Oh.
Fortunately, those days he come buy the ticket on the train.
In your opinion, what do you think was the benefit of the train in Jamaica when Robert and I were growing up, and you guys used to send us to Grandma or go with us? So.
Well, the main benefit was, well, there are two benefits really. One was the excitement of traveling on a train, which even for adults was oftentimes exciting. And the second thing was the ease of getting from one point to another point, where we would not have to drive you down and leave you and then come back to Kingston. We could put you on the train and know that you're going to travel safely to point A. Or if we wanted to come, we could go on the train and come back up the same day. So it would save us a quote-unquote stress of driving to and from in one day.
Well, I thought it would be a very good idea. At least it would let you see the rural areas, see a different lifestyle, and experience something that many of your friends would not experience.
So you didn't think it would be weird for some uptown children to be jumping on the train to go to country?
I didn't see it as uptown children going to country, because I wanted to expose my children to most of what I had experienced in life, because it was such fun.
But I certainly have memories of going through the tunnels when things became pitch black. And you either liked it or you got scared. And the other memory that you have is the memory of the preacher man coming on the train and frightening you with all kind of doomsday prophecies. Another memory would be the memory of the vendors as you pass through certain areas, especially like Kalamazoo, where they would come to the train window.
I'm from rural Jamaica, a district of Alston, which is near to Spaldings. And I traveled to Kendal by bus and then get on the train to go to relatives in Montego Bay. It was fun, just enjoying the ride, going through the tunnels And of course, you had the men selling, you had men preaching, you had the vendors hanging on through the windows trying to sell you as you go along. You would make stop, for example, in Balaclava, St. Elizabeth, where they would sell oranges and other fruit.
Why do you think it's important that they should bring it back?
Because it will save all them big old something with them like on road called, what kind of truck? Forget what they call it truck. The big everlasting truck them are mashing up the road. That train, oh God, that train would be the answer. We never had so much bad roads, you know. Because we didn't have none of them everlasting something coming in here.
The trucks are really ruining the roads. Most of the roads that are ruined are because of the heavy trucks. So there will be no need for people to be driving all the way from Kingston with goods to come to Montego.
The first concept of the railway is time. So one shouldn't talk about whether it's going to take away from taxes, integrate with taxes, is what I really want. Because the train cannot leave at 8, cannot be leave at 8:30, be sitting and waiting until you fill every coach. It's got to leave at 8:30. So the essence of time becomes important to the country, which doesn't have a real essence of time in my considered opinion right now. And therefore now, your children can also travel much more safely and much more quickly to school, because if we looked at it and we would see some of how the absence of the train has impacted on disorder in transportation. The first disorder is we don't know what is a taxi. And if you want to get the train at 8:30 because you want to get to Catadupa by changing a connection, rather than hiring a taxi for $10,000 to take you or changing and hoping, you can have the taxi drop you at the train station at 8:30, you need another taxi when you come off. And then, as I said, the most important aspect of that in terms of the general population is the way we have our school children traveling to school. Firstly, you have an imbalance in the cost of transport because you subsidize the transport in the KMTR region for $80. But in the rural areas and rural starts as much as Old Harbor, it's $400 to $500 for your child daily to go to school. 5 times that is above the minimum wage. Therefore, you're going to lose educational time too. So, the idea is that we're not taking from one, but the railway and its historical and environmental and social and meets all the needs. My process is to integrate it, to expand it, and to be able to have it running to all the parishes of Jamaica. The immediate plan is to run the lines that can accommodate. The train can run right now from Williamsfield all the way to Yorton. And it can run all the way to Montego Bay. We just have to replace some lines where the rights of way exists.
Well, Singapore, I was very impressed. The train, the buses, everything were tied together. You had no difficulty moving around the entire country, which is small, but still within a reasonable time. You did not have to wait for when the next one is coming or when the next bus is arriving because you were informed. The trains were clean and it was just moving millions of people per day, orderly and very in a clean manner.
You think Jamaica can ever have something like that?
I think Jamaica can have something like this, but we will have to educate our people or re-educate our people because discipline is very important. For example, people forming lines to get on a train or on a bus. If they are full, you're just going to wait until the next one. I see that in Jamaica as a disciplinary problem where we cannot wait. And we have not been exposed to discipline for a long time. So it is now ingrained in us where we will almost climb through a bus window to get inside.
So the only country that offers this kind of thing was Singapore, but that's because it's a city-state.
Right.
Therefore, as it dredges itself, it expands itself, but as it expands itself with good planning, and I lived in Singapore from the early development of Singapore in the 60s to recent times. The basic point relates is that we must build that sea-air connection. And I'm setting out on a path for Jamaica of building what is a country sea-air connection. The opening up the Panama Canal is going to be the most futuristic impact on the world, and people still don't recognize it. I can reflect on that on the basis that the man who thought of connecting two oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific, must have been considered like James Watt, a madman, you know. But he connected them. Right now, however, the major ships being built have to around the Cape of Good Hope, they cannot come through. Jamaica, where it's placed now, close to the equator in terms of a triangle, can deliver goods and services 2 to 4 days earlier than anywhere else in the world. Therefore, that is why I linked the port and the railway to Vernon Field as a development, so that the railway runs right into the port as we speak, near the Matava Bridge, and the railway runs right into Vernon Field. So the concept of large ships coming in to break bulk goods, the just-in-time concept of the world, the impatience of youth wanting things today and not tomorrow, relates to the fact that people must begin to get their goods and services near to one point, that they can satisfy demand as it happens. Today you don't manufacture in isolation, you manufacture in an interconnected way. For instance, you could manufacture a car today by the engine in Germany, the body in South Africa, the wheels in another part of South America, and by your communications and timing, you start the production of the wheel, you start the production of the engine, you start the production of the body. They arrive in a container at Jamaica, you assemble them as somebody wants. So that basically it's a just-in-time world in a placeless society. So the train has its aspect now by its own development. So in Jamaica, we will still think of the train by the outdated engines I have, which historical value, of the coaches that I'm trying to rehabilitate with no money overall. But then you see I rode on the bullet train in China a few months ago, and I arrived from my hotel to the airport in, I think, 5 minutes. Therefore, if you speeded up the train, made it run on rubber wheels, levitated, you develop all of that, depending on what it is. So I'm not trying to confine the developmental plan, and I equally think we have to raise the vision. But the real vision now is a big ship comes into the port. It comes in a container. This container is offloaded right onto the railway car. A little bit better than when we used to sing Deo Deo and they were the bananas. But let's own it for ourselves this time. Put it on the train car, take it to Vernon Field. Vernon Field will be built to accommodate the A380, which accommodates the Anatog, the largest freighter in the world. And therefore you break bulk now, and then you also add the dimension of earnings, which comes from labeling, etc., etc., etc. I'm building that so that the railway becomes an integral part of that development.
Well, I hope they bring it back. I understand they're fighting to bring it back. But they have destroyed the lines, and they have destroyed some of the nice coaches because they brought in some nice pretty coach. So when you go in there, you're just dead easy with cool breeze and things. Them destroy some of them, so I don't know what to do like